Hello everyone, my name is Elliott Jorgensen. I'm the associate producer for MHS News, and I'm here with my co-host,
Mr. Mac, former host of the Marquette Messenger Movie News Podcast.
Yeah. So we did this a while back, and so it's been a while, but we're back with the camera, except we had many technical mishaps with our first episode.
Yeah.
So we're recording this in post, and this will just slot in at the start.
Yeah.
The podcast is okay. It's all just going to be covered with Jedi Survivor gameplay, which is the newest Star Wars video game. You'll see me running around Kobo and Coruscant, just beating up like battle droids and stormtroopers and beating hard extra challenge bosses. So if you see me getting hit a lot, I promise I'm not bad at the game. It's just I'm doing the challenge boss. Alright, so let's roll the podcast. We're going to be talking about the new Star Wars show, Ahsoka, written and created by Dave Filoni, who did the Clone Wars and was one of the creators of The Mandalorian, along with Jon Favreau. And so it's it was 6 episodes? 7?
8.
8?
Yeah, it was 8 episodes.
I was sick while watching, so it kind of just
They
kept
just flow
going.
together. It's an 8-hour movie, right?
Yeah, because I couldn't do anything else.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I'm just here.
Sounds good. It just flows, right?
Yeah. So, I guess, like, immediately, like, going out of the show, like, how do you feel about it?
I thought it was fun. I thought it was really slow to get going. The first few episodes were pretty slow to get started up. I feel like that's a common issue with kind of the Disney era Star Wars shows so far, is that they have really slow starts and take a while to kind of set the stage and get ready for the main kind of conflict of the story to come about. But after episode 4, it starts to really roll and pick up steam. And I think those last 5 episodes are pretty good. I think they're really good TV. It's not devoid of problems or issues, but I'd say it was fun. I had a good time. That's always kind of my measure, that I have a good time or not. You know, I'm not a critic, so.
Yeah. I'll say that I liked it. I was definitely expecting it to be slow because I know Dave Filoni's style, and his style's way slower, and then it picks up towards the end, and then it's a slow climb up, and then you go down the hill, and it's a massive loop, and a barrel roll on the roller coaster, and all of that.
Right.
So, a little bit of background on this show specifically. It follows Anakin's Padawan, Ahsoka from the Clone Wars, and she has this show which is taking place after Mando Season 2, and it is basically covering the storylines that were left off after Rebels, the animated show, ended.
Right.
So that would be finding Ezra and Thrawn after they were stranded in the finale of the show, following Hera and Kanan's kid, Jason, and then just that whole group except Zeb, because he wasn't in this show but was in Mando 3.
That was a weird oversight. He's notably absent. I'm wondering if maybe they've got something big planned for him for season 2. I don't know how you would involve him in this show without it kind of feeling. I guess he could just be part of the crew, kind of crammed in there. But they're doing a lot of character work with kind of Ahsoka and Sabine, and maybe he kind of gets in the way of that. I think if he was in the show, maybe he feels underdeveloped, perhaps. Yeah. But I could see why maybe they chose not to include him. But his absence is notable, I would say. Yeah. Yeah,
especially since, for most of the show, it's just a slimmed down Rebels crew with only Ahsoka, Hera, Sabine, that's sometimes in Chopper.
Yeah.
And then we don't have Kanan anymore. Ezra's missing, and then Zeb is not there. And so it's kind of strange to have this gap between the actual show of Rebels and Ahsoka. So a lot happens in between the finale of Rebels and the start of Ahsoka. It mainly focuses on the training of Sabine to be a Jedi, and Ahsoka attempting to be a master, and something falling through, and her leaving and going on other adventures, and then Sabine feels kind of burned because of it, and
Yeah.
is kind of like, and then like kind of just force them back together to be like, yo, like stuff's going down, we gotta find Ezra now, or because if we don't, then the way to that other galaxy is gonna be lost.
Yeah.
And we gotta whip our tails in the shape. And so just kind of following that. So what were some of the highlights of the show for you?
Highlights for me, I think, was kind of the continuation of the Rebels story was pretty cool. I like where they left us off in Rebels. It was like this big kind of cliffhanger ending where, like, right? Like, because you've seen the original trilogy. Like, if you're a Star Wars fan, you know that, like, Ezra doesn't show up. Ahsoka's not in the show. Sabine's not there. So, like, your question is, like, okay, what happens to these characters, right? Hera's around during the original trilogy doing stuff with the Rebellion. She's probably at Endor, right? She's probably in these scenes that we're just not seeing her in, you know what I mean? And that's all but confirmed at the end of Rebels. But, like, the question still remains, like, what happened to these characters, right? Everybody would assume, like, when Rebels was coming out that these guys, like, have to die before Episode 4, because where are they at? That's kind of been the status quo for, like, all the new characters introduced, like, pre-original trilogy that, like, last past Episode 3. So if they exist in that, like, in between 3 and 4 range, the question is always, like, how did they get through the original trilogy? Why aren't they there helping? Why don't we see them? Right? Ahsoka's off the board for a while, kind of, like, stuck in, like, some weird alternate mirror dimension or whatever we're going to call whatever the world between worlds. Yeah, exactly. So she's off the table. So people are like, what is Ahsoka doing in between episodes 4, 5, and 6? Well, she's not there, and we don't know exactly what occurred. But I thought that was really cool for me, like seeing their continuation. I really like getting into like all the weird Force spiritual stuff, and we kind of see a hint of that at the end with Ray Stevenson's Balin Skull. He, at the very end, is kind of like moving towards this weird pillar of light, standing on top of the statue of like these kind of Force gods. So it's the Father, the Daughter, and the Son, and he's like standing atop the statue and like looking off into the distance. And that kind of hints at a previous storyline before that they wrote during the Clone Wars, which was it was on a planet called Mortis, and you kind of get in and like they pull Anakin and Obi-Wan and Ahsoka there because they want Anakin to kind of bring balance to these two like Force entities, and it doesn't go so well, and everybody's memory gets wiped. But it kind of reveals you that Anakin truly is the chosen one. He has the power to like keep the Force in balance. He fails to do so on Mortis, but then obviously goes back out into the world and fulfills his destiny as the chosen one and gets rid of the Sith from the universe. But I like the idea that they're hinting at getting back to that like kind of like deeper Force entity. I thought that stuff is really interesting and cool. Do you have any highlights you want to share? I'm kind of monopolizing the microphone.
No, totally. I was thinking the same thing. I'm thinking that they're definitely setting up Ahsoka the White to be the daughter, and that just leaves the son, which could be Starkiller if they decide to go that route.
Yeah.
Like during like Anakin's time as Darth Vader, if he takes that apprentice, possibly an Inquisitor that has exceptional Force ability that Vader took a real high liking to, because the Inquisitors are kind of like his special task force to go do his bidding and hunt out the remaining Jedi.
Right.
And so I think that the Starkiller is definitely on the table, especially with the depiction of the son in live action in the mountain. It looks so similar to Starkiller, and the daughter's face you can't see.
Her head's knocked off.
The
it's
head's
a broken
not
statue.
there.
Yeah.
And so that's definitely teased. I want to say that the mother who is not like talked about on Mortis definitely could be on the table because of Balin's apprentice. She has a striking resemblance to the Legends character. She has like the teeth, and she's like
Abeloth.
Abeloth, that's her name.
Abeloth.
She's like the chaos, and then he's the balance, and that is that balance there.
Yeah.
And
but I think that's a strong possibility. Maybe not Abeloth like as she existed in Legends.
Yeah.
Because she's stupid powerful. I mean, the power scaling at the end of the Legends continuity, near the end of when those books were finally coming out, gets really ridiculous. Like Luke Skywalker's like moving planets with the Force and stuff like that. Like just absurd levels of power. But I like the idea that we get to see like these Force entities, and Abeloth's an interesting character. A little bit like late 2000s like weirdo-ness going on there, where like she's got like some creepypasta stuff going on. And her depictions in Legends are mostly like fan art stuff too, because I don't think there's any like an actual canon depiction of her.
I think the common one that goes around is a
with the teeth and everything. I know the exact art you're talking about.
It's the one that everyone talks about and shares.
Exactly.
I think like that's what this show is meant to set up. It's meant to set up Sabine as a new like entity in the Force, and since her and like Ahsoka are like together, that sets that up. And then like I guess it's been long enough. We could probably talk about how Ahsoka and Ezra practically switch places, and that gives Sabine and Ahsoka the time to properly train and to have that experience. And so the 4 of them trapped on the planet, they're definitely going to go somewhere with like the Mortis gods and like the history of the Force, and they'll probably find some Night Sister ancient ruins there, and they'll find something about like, oh, the mother was a Night Sister, like they're descended from her, yada yada, something like that.
Something weird's going on.
Yeah, it's gonna go down.
I wanted to speak to the idea of like the son, right? So I think it's really because Sam Witwer voices the son. That's his first role in animated Star Wars. So he was Starkiller, who was the main character from The Force Unleashed, which is a really cool video game, which is basically like this idea that they pitched to George Lucas at LucasArts, which is like, what if the Force was like turned up to 10? You can do crazy stuff, and you pull a Star Destroyer out of the sky, all the cool stuff from that game. And they never brought him into canon, notably, or probably, I mean, we're not reading these people's minds, but like his power scaling is ridiculous, and like the version of the Star Wars universe he exists in is very different than how we see it in regular canon. I'm much more attached to not the character of Starkiller, but the actor of Sam Witwer, much more, because I think he's such a he's a Star Wars fanatic himself, and I think he's really great at like understanding like the spirituality and like the philosophy of Star Wars. And I would love to see him like play with like what does the embodiment of the dark side kind of look like and sound like, and how does he act. Like I think that would be really cool and really interesting to see him play with that. Maybe not as Starkiller necessarily, but as some other like entity like that. I think would be fascinating.
So, in conclusion, Ahsoka is a fun show with a fun cast of characters.
Absolutely.
And if you go into it just expecting to see some cool effects and cool set pieces, and don't think about the choreography too hard, and don't think about the logistics too hard, you'll have a great time.
Yeah, turn your brain off.
Turn your brain off. Have a bunch of friends there with you who are Star Wars fans, and just have a fun time. So, greatest movie ever, worst movie ever?
I'm going to go greatest movie ever.
Same. I think it's a fun watch for any Star Wars fan, and I highly recommend it. If you like the Clone Wars, Rebels, any of Dave Filoni's work, anything Star Wars, you can find something to enjoy.
Absolutely.
So, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time for Spider-Man 2.
There we go.